What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So we're continuing on this today for after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. We also talked about political violence, and in this video, this strand on my hat, that is annoying. I just now noticed and it's sticking up like a now I want to talk about social media and what and the availability of these types of actions being seen more broadly, more accessible, and the concerns around that. Because I saw a video from what I assumed is like a social media influencer, and they were speaking about how this is something that you should not have seen, because after what happened, social media, I think specifically X more than any of them, but it was just feed after feed of videos and stuff of the act, of the moment, some of which were quite intense. I don't know all of the videos. I don't have an X. Well, I do have an X account, but I don't ever get on it. But I have seen some videos of what happened somewhat up close. So I don't know to the degree of what I saw was what was also being seen, or there was even worse videos, or what could be considered more gory or whatever word you want to use. But they were basically stating that it was flooding social media, and you have this practice now that videos just kind of automatically play a lot of times. I mean, there's some settings with you can maybe stop that for some platforms. I'm not sure if all of them are that way, to be honest, but that you're being fed these things without even wanting to be fed these things, right? Like it's that kind of thing that you're pretextually like agreeing to with these social media apps, where you're being fed stuff that you didn't actually necessarily ask for to be fed to you, but the algorithm is feeding it to you regardless, and you see something that maybe you didn't want to see. But that's kind of the freedom. First off, that's kind of the freedom of social media, and a part of everyone's freedoms. What they were stating, though, was that like this is something that you shouldn't have been able to see like that, and that basically when they were growing up, you didn't see these kinds of things, and it would take you having to do some serious investigation, or like prodding, or some type of like you just wouldn't come across it unless you were doing some serious digging and be able to somehow come across some kind of files of of video footage or pictures or something like that in order to see it. And that this was that social media was causing like this mental change in our society, and it's something that we just aren't used to, and that we should not be getting used to. And in some weird way, it was argued even that it's like desensitizing us. I don't know if it was necessarily to the violence or desensitizing us in the fact that we're seeing it, and so we are losing. Like, I didn't really understand that part. Now, I can get the idea of like something being put in front of you that you didn't ask for. And I guess the argument was overall that, this stuff shouldn't be seen and it should be protected. Like, you should be protected from it. There should be like some sort of rules or regulations around social media that they can't show, or videos like this cannot be allowed to just be shown without like maybe some type of protectionary measures being made. And while I probably would agree with that, especially for certain ages, to be sensitized from it. Of course, that still falls on the parents to like protect their kids' accounts from, and make sure that their accounts reflect their correct age and, content availability and all that kind of stuff. And if you're that concerned with your kids being prevented from seeing certain things. But I actually would argue, and I'm going to make an argument here, that I actually say that it could be seen as a good thing for society to be able to see this. Like, I understand maybe advocating for settings could be changed if you don't want to see that kind of thing. You personally can change something so that you aren't able to see it unless you like literally ask to see it. And I even think that there are some settings for that on certain platforms. I'm not sure about all. But if you're arguing for it to be completely removed and not allowed, that's something that I think goes against, for starters, your First Amendment rights, freedom of speech, whether it's for you or for a company or whatever, and what's allowed. We've had this type of discussion before. But also, I would say that it being accessible like that, being more accessible like it is a benefit to society. And I'm going to tell you why. I think that part of the problem with especially the U.S., but I'm thinking, you could probably make this argument from a lot of other places too. But especially for the U.S., that there has been in our history, in our culture, an idea to shelter from things we think are just too much, too egregious, too whatever, fill in the blank, for our society, to control it to a certain degree, that we shouldn't be able to see these certain things, or should be able to witness these certain things or whatever. And I think acts of violence like this as one major one. I think the fact that in the past we didn't even have accessibility to these types of things, or even just accessibility to just certain knowledge, period, without going or being, having to go really deep into literature or whatever the case in order to even find it, has benefited society. The ease of access to data and information has benefited society at large and given society the ability, yet choice, because some in society still choose not to, even though it's right there easily to access. The ability to critically, to find things and critically, to research themselves and find things and have critical thought, have critical, understanding of things. And I would even go as far as for video and visuals like this being accessible with such ease is actually a benefit to society, because being sheltered from these types of things does not benefit you. It actually shows a reality to what gun violence in general, but gun violence specifically in this event can do. It shows it and puts it right in your face what it looks like, what it can do, the horrors of it, and whenever somebody is placed with that knowledge, with that insight, it oftentimes brings about a completely different perspective on things. And I think that's a perspective that a lot of America doesn't have. Think about veterans when they come back from war. You have a lot of them mentally affected, PTSD, stuff like that, because of what they saw, what they witnessed, the carnage, the atrocity, the sounds, everything, and it literally affects them. Now, that's not all veterans. Some come back with not much of a problem at all. But it just depends upon the person and how you're affected by certain things. And oftentimes, from what I see, is those that are affected like that come back with a completely different perspective of violence. And those are the type that usually are advocating against wars, advocating against gun violence, advocating against, or for more regulations and things like that. And those that come back, hooping and hollering still for the Second Amendment and all that stuff, and relaxed stuff are the people who more likely weren't affected because they have a different psyche about it. Just to keep it simple. But I think this has even been a great thing for society, let's say, when we talk about the genocide in Gaza. The fact that is even... The fact that there is the outrage there is internationally over what's going on there, more in society than in our elites, our leadership, because while there's condemnation there, oftentimes there's still not any action. But in society, there's outrage and anger because those actions going over there, the imagery that comes out of Gaza is so horrific, and people are faced with the reality of it, that they're hearing the rhetoric, and they're hearing the propaganda from political leadership, and they're looking at them and going, something's not fucking adding up. And it puts a perspective, and it makes people face a reality, the reality of what's actually going on, and they don't like it. And that's something that we haven't seen before. That's something that as a society we haven't been privy to. Unless, when it comes to previous wars, or whatever, you didn't really get affected. You may have been, economically affected or whatever. You didn't get any personally affected by it unless a loved one came back like tremendously traumatized by it, or didn't come back at all. You were personally affected in that way. But you still didn't see what was going on over there unless you were literally over there. And I mean, let's face it, in the US, we haven't really had any personal like inter major mass violence like that, a war like that, in a very long time, where we were literally faced with something like that. And I think that's the reason why the importance of social media now, and the fact that these types of things can be so easily accessible, is beneficial, because now we're faced to see it. We're faced to deal with it. It's right there for us to now cognitively think about and ponder and the confliction of whether or not, okay, how important is this Second Amendment right? Am I truly willing to fight so much for ease of access, so much for guns to be available, so for me and anybody else, to extreme measures, even type of ammo and artillery that should not, in my opinion, even remotely be accessible by society, by regular, John, Jane Doe. And then also conflict that and with image of something like what happened yesterday. Knowing that what I'm arguing for over here directly causes what I just saw. And the mental fuckery, backflips, and twists that you have to make in order to continue to advocate for those things, continue to defend, continue to apologize for that defense, which is something that a lot of people have not, like I said, been privy to before. They're not faced with seeing that type of violence. They're not faced with seeing actual results unless it like literally specifically happened to you. I think generally as a society, a great part of this society has really never had that experience. It's the concept of seeing is believing. Yeah, we hear about it all the time. We hear about the gun shootings, the school shootings, mass shootings. We hear about events going on around the world. We hear about Gaza. We hear about Ukraine. We hear about, you name it, wherever, the Congo. We hear we hear about, the violence, the explosion in that us bombing a boat from Venezuela. We hear about those things, but it's like, unless we are faced to act or to see it. Seeing is believing. Seeing is having a completely different perspective. So yes, I think having that availability right there in our face ultimately benefits society. Because now you're left with that imagery, you're left with that reality of what we have established here as a country. What we have up to this point just accepted or turned our eyes from as a reality, as a everyday norm that should not be, that should not exist. We should not be concerned with someone giving a speech or having, an intellectual debate in public and there be a concern for an act like this happening. We shouldn't be concerned or have to be concerned with the type of security and protection for a president or someone campaigning for president or whatever, to be having a rally or a speech or something, and be concerned with an act like this happening. We shouldn't be concerned or worried about our kids simply going to school and needing the security and the protections to make sure something like this doesn't fucking happen. But because of this constant protection of the fucking Second Amendment and our fucking pride as Americans and our goddamn given right to bear arms with minimal regulations, with minimal we shouldn't have to deal with it. Enough is a fucking enough. I'm angry and frustrated over acts like this happening over and over and over and over and fucking over again. But I'm angry at the fact that we as a society haven't fucking understood our failure here. Us as a society, us as a country, in the fact in our pride and over the Second Amendment is causing, it's directly causing all of this. It's the reason why we see daily, it taking the lives of our politicians, of influencers, of our children, our loved ones. Neighbors, friends. It's time for us to get the fuck over it. It's time for us to realize where we are failing. We are failing our society. We are failing this country. We are failing our friends and neighbors. We're failing our family. We're failing our fucking kids. Because we as a society continue down this insane path. Around the Second Amendment. So no, social media is not the problem. Having ease of access to these types of things is not the problem. I would say that the protectionism and sheltering from these types of things throughout our history has been the problem. Being faced with reality and not your protective bubble is exactly, in my opinion, what this society needs, what this country needs. So that maybe we can start having a different perspective. Thank you so much for joining me. Till next time. Peace. It's been ClearTalk. With love. I'm out.